Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of our educational webinar series. Today, we're going to talk about getting the most out of Microsoft Teams. So first and foremost, we set this agenda and content well ahead of this current crisis that we're in, but we also, as a family here at Red River, want to make sure that everyone out there, is healthy and most importantly, stays healthy, throughout this entire crisis. But it's crazy how relevant some of this potential, this technology can be. And as I mentioned, the content here was originally built around, folks that maybe have had Teams or had some experience with Teams, and we're going to try to give you, some ideas on how to leverage it better. But I also want to make sure it's clear today that, enabling Teams, if you haven't used it yet, okay, or you're really, really seriously thinking about, rolling this thing out, be confident that, we have a team and some capability from Microsoft that might help you get there sooner than you think. Okay, so at the end of this presentation, after Jeff is finished with kind of the speeds and feeds and the technology, we also want to talk about how we can enable your organizations, by using Microsoft Teams. So today, we don't know how long this crisis is going to last. Okay, we know that, I would hope for the best, but I don't think Easter's it, quite frankly. I'm not going to hold my breath for that, but at the same time, if we do have to prepare ourselves for the long haul, and there is some operational continuity, that we need to have, I want you guys to be also confident that from our own experience here at Red River, we've actually moved 650 people back home, okay, from our 5 offices across the country. So everybody, including service desk engineering teams, are working from home, and we are largely, if not exclusively, communicating through the Microsoft Teams platform and leveraging all of the services available inside of it. And I'm telling you, I'm as busy as I ever was, and our teams are as well connected, as we ever were. So we're using live events, okay, for this presentation. It's a component of Microsoft Teams. Generally used for larger broadcasts, okay, and there's some production controls and things built around that. One of those for the end users is a Q&A. You will see a chat button, I believe, up in your top right area of your screen, question mark with a chat icon. Anytime you have any questions, please feel free to submit them. We'll be monitoring them as we're going along. If we can answer them on the fly, we will. Time permitting, we'll have a Q&A session at the end where we can answer some of these, but trust me, we will get back to each and every one of you, okay, with answers to your questions. But in order for us to do that, please make sure you include some contact information inside the chat, okay, so that we can do so. All right, so I'll make some quick introductions. I'm Frank Lesko. I am the VP of Sales for Managed Services for the new Red River Managed Services team. Collectively, I've been with the company for 15 years. Many of you have known us as CWPS in the past. We were acquired back in September of 2019 by Red River, and it's been a wonderful experience. Trust me on that one. I'd love to talk to any one of you about where we stand now as a Red River division. With us today, and the primary presenter for the technology is Jeff Porter. He is a sales engineer, a collaboration-specific sales engineer on my team, and we have a familiar face in Gary Utley, who is on our marketing team and responsible for setting these up. And in the background, you don't see the person, but Corinne Jones is kind of at the helm right now, kind of running this production. Okay, so as you can see, we have our locations listed there. Every single one of us is operating from a remote location this morning. Okay. So what I'd like to do, I think the next slide is we're going to hand this off to Jeff, and he's going to start his presentation. I'll come back around towards the end, okay, and talk to you about how we can enable you, and then do some Q&A and wrap it up. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Frank. I'm Jeff Porter, coming to you from Ashburn, Virginia, the land of data centers. And we can't ignore the white elephant in the room. We've all been impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. And mainly what it's impacted is what we're doing today. Everybody working remotely, having to be connected over the internet. And it's changed the way a lot of us are working, but it hasn't impacted some of us as much I've worked remote for quite a while, and I'm sure a lot of you out there work remote on a regular basis. But the big difference is almost entire organizations are working remote. And in fact, this webcast originally was going to be about the Poly CCX IP phones, but we had to pivot, of course. We planned this months ago. Typically, we're in the same room with each other with equipment around us, doing demonstrations and doing this presentation for you. But as Frank mentioned, today we're all remote. And with this pandemic, it's time to dust off your disaster recovery and business continuity plans, because those typically include remote access. And that's what the name of the game is today. And that's why we're talking to you about Microsoft Teams. It's about remote working, teleworking, telecommuting, whatever you might call it, for the entire organization. The last webinar back in December, we talked about the fact that Teams had surpassed 20 million daily active users in November. Well, I'm here to report that this week or last week, it reached over 44 million active users. So obviously with the coronavirus pandemic, it's meant a lot more adoption and a lot more use of Teams. And we're going to show you why that is. First, let's talk about the different ways to be a remote user. And that always involves using the internet. And like I said, today we're focusing on Microsoft 365 and Office 365 and Azure services, and then using Teams specifically. And that's called a public cloud. There are other examples of public clouds, such as Salesforce.com. But the idea with a public cloud is that it lives on the internet, it's accessible from anywhere and everywhere, and doesn't require a VPN. So you run VPN-less. However, when it's living up in a cloud on the internet, you need to consider security for sure. That's why we use multi-factor authentication and recommend that all our clients do. Now, some organizations have what we call a private cloud. A private cloud would be a group of servers either in a data center or in their own server rooms. These private clouds don't typically live on the internet, although they might have internet access. They usually require a VPN to access that private cloud. In our case, we recommend Cisco AnyConnect SSL VPN. However, you could also deploy things like terminal servers or virtual desktops. Frank's going to talk to you about an offering we have for Windows virtual desktops. But whenever you're building your own infrastructure, you must consider your capacity. And this is one thing that we've been very busy with here lately, because obviously a lot of organizations are ramping up their VPN usage, and many times they're blowing by their capacities, and we need to increase those capacities. Another consideration would be your telephone system, voice and video. If that's on-prem, you can typically access that over the VPN too. And in some organizations, you might have a combination of both, public cloud services as well as private cloud services. It just depends on where your organization is at in that digital transformation journey. So let's show you why Teams is important to enable your remote workforce. And the first thing is that it is the hub of the modern workplace that we call Microsoft 365. It is the one application that allows you to access all the functionality and applications across the 365 cloud. It does leverage SharePoint and OneDrive Online for storage. And this is why I spend my entire day in Teams, whether I'm in the office or out of the office. I can collaborate with all of my fellow staff members and post and access all the information that I use throughout the day. The only exception is email. I still use Outlook for email. These are the three pillars of Microsoft Teams. Collaboration, where you have chat and Teams itself, meetings that include rich video and presentations, and then calling, which will allow you to have your phone system inside of Teams and call PSTN telephone numbers. This is for calling outside your organization. We use Teams for all three, and I'm going to run through the icons on the left-hand side of this slide, or the same icons you have in the Teams application. And we're going to start with collaboration. Collaboration is going to involve the activity icon, the chat icon, and the Teams icon. So first, for collaboration, you have your activity icon where you can view your activity, which is shown as my activity. And as you can see in this window, I have all of the posts and chats that I've performed, as well as when I click on that event, I can go directly to that post or chat. With the feed, I see all the mentions. So if someone does an @mention for me, it draws my attention to that. And again, I can click on that and go directly to that chat or post. Notice that inside the post, in this window, this happens to be a chat window, you still have the tabs on the top, which I'll show you also in the Teams channels, as well as video, handset for voice, so if I want to make a phone call, and desktop sharing from within this chat, and all the content too. At the bottom here in your message window, this could be expanded by clicking on the A icon so that you can format it and add different content. But you can also access content with the paperclip and provide some other functions and features such as smiley icons and GIFs. Next icon is the chat. This is commonly known as instant messaging, but this goes way beyond instant messaging. In chat, I can show it by contacts, or I can sort it by my recent chats, and those are listed here. And then in the chat window, like I said, you have the tabs on the top. This happens to be a group chat off our demo tenant, and we named it Demo Setup. So there's several chat members in here, and as you can see, we were talking back and forth, and some GIFs are posted in here as well. But that functionality at the bottom, whenever you post a message, exists. So you can just type your message and hit enter right on the message line, or you can press the A, and you'll have a word processing screen where you can format, as well as make that important and add the other functions. And again, video, voice, and desktop sharing from within a chat group. Teams is the next icon, and this is the actual teams themselves. At the top of this column, you have the team, and then under that team, you have your channels. Every team always has a general channel, but the other channels below here, such as the demo and sales A that we're showing, are added. And they can be added for specific projects, maybe a team of collaborators, whatever the reason might be. The tabs on the top are very much like a chat window where you can add tab functionality. And you can see we've added some custom tabs here. At the bottom, again, on the message window, you have all the functionality here, including a camera where you can fire off a meeting for everyone that's a member of this channel. Notice inside the conversation of the channel, you can post, right? These are different posts or conversations, files. And again, the key to Teams is if I want to look at that Word file, I can simply click on it and it will open inside the Teams application. But I can also right-click on it and open it up in Office Online or in my local desktop applications. So I never have to leave the Teams application if I don't need to. The next pillar is meetings, and that uses the calendar icon. And this happens to be a meeting screenshot that we had yesterday about this very webinar that we're on today. This bar at the bottom displays whenever you hover your mouse over the video images, and you can make it go away by moving your mouse off the video images. And inside here, you can control your mic and your video, of course, and the time online. You can also add members to this meeting. So you can add either members of your organization with just a name or email, or you can also have the system call someone on a PSTN telephone number, such as a mobile phone or their desk phone, and add them to the meeting as well. It does create a specific chat group for this meeting. And if you hit the more icon, this is special functionality you have inside the meeting, such as being able to change or show your device settings. So for me, using my VoxBox, that's what that would show, is that I'm using the VoxBox for both my audio, my mic, and my speakers. But you can also show the meeting notes and details about the meetings, as well as control how the video is presented to you. And blurring your background is pretty important, or it is an important feature when you're working from home. My home office I don't typically use blur, but there might be instances when blur is an appropriate thing to use if you have a lot of background activity going on that will blur that. Live captions is a new feature, and live captions will work with multiple languages. It's in preview. You can access a familiar keypad if you want to dial a telephone number, or you can start recording this session. So the last option here, turn off incoming video. That's something I've used a lot if I'm remote without a great internet connection. It's handy to turn off the incoming video so that my endpoint is now using less bandwidth. And I actually have used that a few times. This is the calendar you see when you press the calendar icon, and it shows not just your meetings, it shows all of the events in your calendar. This happens to be my personal calendar from last week. So it shows my dentist appointment and any appointment I have in my Outlook calendar. And I can schedule meetings directly from here. I can fire off a meet now and add participants to that, or I can schedule a meeting by pressing the new meeting icon or button. That opens a window where I can title the meeting and add attendees, set the date and time, of course. I can even add it to a very specific channel and some details about that meeting. Once that invite is sent, the participants receive this invite. It gives you a link into the Teams meeting. It gives you the call-in telephone number. This is audio conferencing. So audio conferencing is a feature that you add to Microsoft Teams meetings to allow a local call-in. This can be a toll-free call-in as well. One of the nice things about these invites is if you are mobile and you're trying to join while you're driving, you wouldn't typically use the Teams application on your mobile, but when you press this phone number, it will call into the meeting, including the pauses and the meeting number, and allow you to join that meeting with audio only. You can also link over to any local dial-in phone number. So if you're in a foreign country or somewhere else that you may be paying toll, then you can find a local call-in number. At the bottom here, I've got a blue box around this video conference device part of the invite. We use Poly Real Connect 365. It allows us to use standards-based video teleconference systems such as Poly Group Series and Cisco Telepresence. It also allows anybody that wants to join our meetings to use a standards-based video device. So if they have a standards-based video teleconference system in their conference room, they can use this link to also access the meeting. That's using the Microsoft Teams meeting interoperability. We've talked about this a lot, and it's been around for a good year plus. The Poly Real Connect for Microsoft Teams is what's providing that video teleconference access in all of the meetings that we schedule. It also allows our on-premise legacy systems to receive invites and join those same meetings. New feature over here on the right called Direct Guest Join. It's coming soon. You'll see it appear on your Teams meeting devices, such as a Teams meeting room system, but also a Surface Hub or one of the new video bars. You'll be able to join Zoom and WebEx meetings directly from that native device. This is what it's going to look like on the screen. You'll have the familiar Teams meeting screen with all the meetings scheduled for that device, and the join button, of course, too. But you'll notice the icon's different. Instead of a Teams meeting, there's a WebEx meeting, there's a Zoom meeting. It's not available yet, but it will be available soon. And as well, Zoom and Cisco are also adding functionality to allow those platforms to also join Teams meetings. So we'll be able to have interoperability between all the different platforms. Some of the latest Teams features that have been released, the ones in bold are still in preview. The ones not bolded are available today. And a couple of these are important to point out. One is live captions. So I said that's in preview. You can add some additional functionality, such as when you invite members to a meeting, you can set a policy. Maybe you don't want them to be able to desktop share. Also, Teams meetings now has been approved in the GovCloud, so the federal clients can also use it. Audio conferencing has been enhanced to add additional countries. We have several clients that work internationally, and those local dial-in numbers are important in their local countries, so they're not making toll calls. PowerPoint recording is simply when you are doing a desktop presentation inside a Teams meeting, and you use the record function that I showed you, it is also recording your content, whether that's a PowerPoint or a whiteboard session. Background blur we already talked about, and that's available on both Windows and Mac clients. The whiteboard experience has been improved inside Microsoft Teams, and the way it's been improved is that on Teams devices, such as a Microsoft Teams room, you can add a touch screen and use that to whiteboard directly into the meeting. Same thing on a Surface Hub, which is a touchscreen device. The new collaboration bars, such as the Poly Studio X video bars, also can have a touch screen connected to those devices. And then, of course, on your own desktop clients and mobile clients, you can touchscreen, or you can whiteboard with a touchscreen. So whiteboard functionality has been enhanced. Let's talk about the last pillar of Microsoft Teams, and that's calling. Typically the last piece to come along in a customer's transformation journey, but important for what I showed you before. If you're going to be working remote, you have to consider your calling. It could be something as simple as forwarding your existing telephone system to a phone number that's been provisioned inside Microsoft Teams. You, of course, use the calls icon. It does allow you to set speed calls and favorites, as well as contacts that might be outside your organization. You can view that by contacts or your history. It's like your call log of calls you've received and made. You can also access your voicemail. At the bottom corner here, you see the familiar touchpad, and on top of that touchpad will be the phone number you've been allocated. So if you have the calling feature with PSTN calling, you'll see a phone number at the top of your touchpad. If you're using calling, you probably want to consider some desktop solutions. Most certainly on a PC, probably the worst experience is using the built-in speakers and mic that needs to be enhanced. Today, I'm talking to you with a Poly Voxbox, something that I typically always use for my home office. But Poly makes other full duplex speakerphones you can use. It's just a USB connection. Headsets are probably the most important thing when you're working remotely. In fact, it's kind of hard to get headsets if you don't already have one. They're kind of in short supply these days, along with webcams and power supplies for IP phones. But headsets are important. And most users would bring along their own headset because it's a personal preference thing. I have several different models that I use for different reasons. The Poly Alera is a smartphone dock, so if you're a mobile-centric user and you use your iPhone or Android device all the time, this might be a great device for you to be able to use that device as your actual Teams client. And as I mentioned, the Trios for audio only, and then the new Poly CCX phones, which are Teams phones that run the Teams application. If you want to use calling, you need a PSTN calling plan. Otherwise, when you're calling, it's just a great big intercom that's inside your organization. So requires both Microsoft phone system and a PSTN calling plan. And the chart I have in front of you is showing you the different enterprise licenses, which are required to use calling and the phone system. An E1 and an E3 require you to add the phone system feature. And then also a public switch telephone network PSTN calling plan, $12 for domestic or $24 for international. If you have an E5 license, however, that gives you a lot of value because the phone system feature is included. And not just that, the audio conferencing feature I mentioned earlier, which gives you that local call-in feature, but also local calling out from a Teams meeting, is an additional $4. That is included in E5. So E5 provides $12 of savings per user. And I'm not suggesting you go to E5 just for that savings. There are many other reasons to have E5. And they involve things like applications like Power BI you might want access to, or maybe some of the security functionality. The point is you don't have to add phone system to an E5 user. You do to the other licenses. Now you can avoid buying the PSTN calling plan by deploying something that's called direct routing for Teams calling. A direct routing allows you to bring your own dial tone. Those can be SIP trunks or even a traditional legacy PRI-T1. So you don't have to buy the PSTN plan, but you still need to have or buy the phone system feature. Because you're bringing your own dial tone, maybe using what you have existing, there's no reason to port telephone numbers. So it saves you that 30+ days of a porting order to move your listed telephone numbers into the Microsoft Cloud. And it's a perfect solution if you're locked into a contract, but you want to move to Teams calling. You probably don't want to pay the cancellation fees on your current voice services. So those could be used as your dial tone and not have to port the phone numbers. And it can also be used if you have a third-party system, for instance, such as we do at Red River Managed Services. We have a Cisco system and we use Teams. It simply requires a Microsoft-approved session border controller. And those are Audio Codes and Ribbon, of which we are both partners for. But also the Cisco ISR 4000 is about to be approved for direct routing as a session border controller. I mentioned that at Red River Managed Services, we use direct routing. We're using a Cisco voice gateway, and we parse the calls at the voice gateway from Cisco and send them as a SIP call to our session border controller, which in our case is Audio Codes. That will route the call up to the cloud for the user. But if it's a call for our help desk, which is using the Unified Contact Center from Cisco, or somebody else on the communications manager, we'll send it there. So direct routing allows you to accommodate third-party systems as well as bring your own dial tone. Let's talk about the Teams endpoints. These may not be as important these days since we're all working remote. But I do want to point out that these new phones do allow a common area phone, which has typically been a roadblock for customers moving off their PBXs to Teams for calling because they need an instrument in certain areas. And this common area phone, besides being less expensive, also can use this common area phone license from Microsoft. That's only $8. So it's not even a full user like an e-license. It doesn't need to be. But then you have phones that were more appropriate for users, the 500 and the 600. Here's a side-by-side showing you the quick differences, the different size of screens, number of USB ports, but more importantly, the 500 and the 600 models have Bluetooth, so you can use Bluetooth headsets and devices, and only the 600 has Wi-Fi, which might be important in a home if you're trying to connect in a home office that is not wired for internet. It can be added to the other models just by adding a dongle. Also notice the other models work not just for Teams, but also Skype for Business. So we still have a lot of clients, and I still get a lot of calls for either using Skype for Business online or Skype for Business on-prem. The Poly CCX phones will work with Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams. Also, the 500 and 600 have a feature called modularity, where you can remove the handset and bundle it with a headset. So you wouldn't even have a handset on the phone. For your meeting room solutions, and this could very well be a home office, we have Teams meeting room solutions commonly called Microsoft Teams Rooms, MTRs. They come in different flavors, different hardware platforms, different cameras. You can mix and match for whatever fits the room best. And you even have Crestron Flex available for the very large AV integrated rooms. The Microsoft Teams Room is really a software and hardware solution. The software is from Microsoft. They made it available back in January 2019. And it does require Windows 10 Enterprise version. Typically, you buy the hardware already bundled. Also notice that a Teams meeting room license is only $15. So again, a savings over having to allocate an e-license for that room. The compatible Windows 10 platforms are basically touchscreen platforms, either docks that use a Surface, or one of the platforms we like is Logitech Tap. And there's other reasons for that, such as this reason that your conference table might be in the middle of the room, but your screen's in the front of the room. And this cabling is solved by some of these platforms, such as the Logitech Tap and the HP Slice. You bring your own screens and projectors. It does support dual screens and projectors. Most USB cameras will work, and it does have inputs and outputs for mics and speakers. So this cabling is a big consideration when you're building a Microsoft Team Room. Other solutions, I mentioned the Surface Hub a couple of times. Surface Hub 2, it can come as a single on a stand, or you can build a video wall. And it does have some very special functionality when it comes to Microsoft Teams meetings. It has a pen. It is a touchscreen, so perfect for whiteboarding. And you can do things like grab OneDrive files and add them to the meeting. The new Poly video bars, we've talked about the Polycom or the Poly Studio before. This works well on Microsoft Teams rooms, but Poly also has the new Studio X. Studio X is a new platform from Poly. It's not yet available for Microsoft Teams, but it will be sometime this year in 2020. It's going to provide you a video bar solution that is a native Teams device. It's going to have the 4K camera that has the automatic speaker tracking and framing. And it can also have a touch panel and provide wireless content sharing. And I've had a lot of interest from clients on this device. So let's switch back over to Frank. He's going to tell us how we can let you get the most out of your teams, depending on where you're at in that digital transformation journey.
All right, thanks a lot, Jeff. I appreciate it. There is an amazing number of great questions that are flowing in. So I'm going to try so hard to get through this so we can get to some of these questions because they're really, really good and they're very relevant. So, but first and foremost, I'm going to zip through this, but this is an important piece to know. There are a number of things. Take some time to kind of look at this. I'm not going to belabor. I'm not going to force you to kind of walk through this whole journey that we've developed for Microsoft to kind of help enable and activate and help you leverage or adopt some of these services. But this is to know that we do have a full suite of capabilities built around that. So one of the things I think is important is the next slide, you guys, and that's about a new solution that is driven around, really started because of this current situation that we're in, the pandemic, and customers asking us, how do we get connected? How do we get connected? If they're not fully deployed in the cloud, okay, whether they're using SaaS applications or they've got access to hyperscale services like Azure, for their workloads, or of course Office 365. Some folks still have data centers, right? Whether they're on-prem or whether they're in, data centers like Equinix and the like. So through Azure and through Windows Virtual Desktop, okay, we are able to help customers get that access and provide some continuity in their operations through this, get through that issue of the bottleneck with the VPN, make it VPN less, and any restrictions that you may have with connectivity to your data center. So this is something that we are going to have a presentation on in probably the next week or so. So stand by for that one. It should be very interesting. And for those that have this current situation, maybe we can help. Okay, moving on to how you get enabled with Teams. Okay, so for those of you that have it, wonderful. For those of you that don't, you saw that graphic. 20 million to 40 some odd million people are now using Teams, and a lot of partners like us are helping customers get there. I'm talking to customers right now. I had 5 conversations this week on how we would get those particular customers to Microsoft Teams. A couple of different ways we can do that. For those that are on the larger end, 1,000 users or more, okay, and are, maybe have some way of collaborating today, but really think Teams is the right way to go and want to maybe a little bit of a slow roll on getting this pushed out, we can do Microsoft pilots or meetings workshops, right? That they can be delivered virtually to help assess, okay, and assist you with the onboarding and migration to Teams, and we will cover everything from the collaboration pieces Jeff talked about to meetings, and of course. We could even talk calling, but there is some incentive built into this. So a subsidy that we will receive that will enable us to do this for you at no charge, okay, for the most part. So this is the meetings workshop, 1,000 users and above, those that want to kind of walk into this, crawl into it, before they start running. Okay, the next service, we are a FastTrack authorized partner. So we are at FastTrack ready, as they call it. There's 75 of us only in the country, all right? And everybody that is 150 users or more has some FastTrack benefit available to them, okay? So 150 to 500 has a set of benefits available to them. Okay, it's money. Okay, it's Microsoft money, right? And then as a FastTrack ready partner, we have some obligations and requirements for delivering, best case practice, maybe some level of onboarding services to you, but definitely helping you kind of set the table in building your plan, okay, to move into Microsoft Teams. So depending upon where you are in your adoption cycle, okay, and what specific workloads you're looking to deploy, there could be funding available to you there as well. So think, and this really cuts across about 7 or 8 different services or workloads. So it's not only Teams, but it's underlying SharePoint Online. It's even some of the advanced compliance services like ATP and AIP and CASB, all of those things, not necessarily relevant specifically here, although there's security underlies or overlays everything, but there's buckets of money available for every single one of those workloads as they're activated and as you adopt and start using them, okay? And in many cases, we can turn that around to subsidize or fund any of these steps along the way, all the way through migration, okay? And some of these amounts can be pretty considerable. So please feel free to reach out to us to talk about these things. Now, for FastTrack, we would need some approvals and some information that needs to roll up to Microsoft. You would have to approve us to be, and then you would have to then be entered into our portal to be able to, issue those funds. You can reach us at connect@redriver.com for any of these things, okay? Remember, there's only 75 of us out there, so it's a very exclusive group, but we're here to help you there. Okay, let's, I don't think I have anything else after this, right? We can go straight to questions, good, because there's just a bunch of them, Jeff. The screen share and recording thing, right? So maybe even outside of live events, how simply can we get that done? How do we take notes inside of it? Where do those notes get stored? Where do the recordings get stored? Things like that, if you could talk about that a little bit. There's a couple of questions related to that.
Well, let's start with the recording.
Yeah.
And you did see that it's easy to record a meeting. It's selectable from the control bar while you're inside a meeting. And that enhancement they've made is just that it's recording your presentation at the same time. That is stored in Stream and emailed or accessible from the chat, which is also created as part of a meeting. And that's the second part, the notes. The notes can be stored as part of the meeting. I believe there might be some enhancements coming so that you can start using Microsoft Notes for that. But for now, the notes are stored as part of the meeting.
Well, yeah, we can definitely add OneNote as a tab. Okay, can we show the tabs? Can we show that anyway? Are you able to throw that up there and show it?
Not easily.
Okay, maybe the slide deck has it on there, but in the presentation screen, there are various tabs, and those tabs, within those tabs, we could add a multitude of applications, okay, third-party applications that are approved by and integratable into Teams. We can add OneNote for sure, and we can support all our notes there, okay? And of course, those are shareable notes. There's a wiki tab where we can actually document some notes. A person has a question about, is there an easy way to export that into a decent format? I don't know, but I promise you I will look into that to see if there is. What we use wiki for typically is we do a lot of process inside of wiki. So if we create a team that is addressing some particular process inside the organization, let's say it's an order management process, something like that, we might just in that wiki document that entire process inside that particular team. Yeah, there's a number of different things. Planner, of course, is one that could be integrated in there. Somebody had a question about, Planner templating, and that capability is there, because I know I used to try to take a planner from one channel and move it to another one, and they're tied together. So what changes you make in one are made in the other. But we can do some things with templating now, so I'd be happy to talk to you guys more about that, or put somebody in front of you, like one of our practice leads, to talk about that. How about whiteboards? Are we able to do anything there and show anything there?
Well, not real time right here in the meeting, but we did talk about that the whiteboard feature has been enhanced, and the big enhancement is on your room systems. You can use a touchscreen device to be able to whiteboard directly on that device. Whiteboard has pretty much been there the entire time, I believe, on the clients, the desktop clients and the mobile clients. The main enhancement is, hey, it's being added to the Teams room systems too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those things like that, we definitely would have been able to demo if we were in the right situation. We had all our devices set up. I think we've done that before on a demo, and there might even be a recording that we have on whiteboarding, isn't there? I think there's like a video that we've recorded on whiteboarding, so maybe we can
For
find
sure.
it and poke
Yeah,
it.
we've showed the content camera feature. This goes a little bit beyond that, but yeah, whiteboarding's certainly been enhanced.
Yeah, can we integrate a group calendar into Teams instead of your own personal calendar?
Let's see, it's my shared calendar. I think you can only see the calendar of your own, right? Your own
Calendar.
personal
That's what I thought.
shared calendar. A group calendar is something you'd have to access in Outlook, right? It's a function of Outlook. I don't think you can see that inside the Teams client because that's a user.
Yeah. You know, integrating a calendar is pretty straightforward. I think, you know, your own calendar into this, right? I mean, I don't know. I guess that's part of the onboarding process, but it's pretty straightforward. And, you know, again, that's something if you wanted to understand the steps on how to do that, be happy to put you in touch with one of our team members, okay? Be happy to do that for anybody that's on this call, okay? Did you guys see any others that might be that stood out that I didn't answer?
Yeah, here's a few questions a lot of people have been actually liking. How do you integrate your Outlook calendar with Teams calendar?
It's automatic, it's inherent. There's no integration required. That calendar is my Outlook calendar. And when I schedule a Teams meeting from that native calendar, it also adds it to my Outlook shared calendar. They're one and the same.
Yeah, so it's going to show everything on there. It's going to show everything that's in your Outlook calendar will be in there, not just Teams meetings. It used to be just Teams meetings, but now it's fully integrated. They even changed the name of the icon from meetings to calendar recently to reflect that. Okay.
All right, we have another question. Can a group calendar be added to Teams?
I already asked that one.
Sorry, there was a lot of likes on that one.
All right.
Did you ask can we have more than 4 windows displayed during a meeting?
Oh, of course.
No, not today. Not today. You're going to get the ribbon at the bottom, and you're going to get the 4, the quad.
Yeah, but you can choose who the pinned window is, and then you're right. See the film strip at the bottom.
Yeah.
All right, we have another one. Can you talk about using Teams external with clients? I noticed each team auto creates a SharePoint site. What permission levels is required?
It does create a SharePoint site when you spin up a new team. What they talking about, guest access through browsers?
I'm assuming.
Yeah. So when I showed the Teams meeting link, of course you could call in for audio only, but if you hit that link inside a browser, it will join the Teams meeting using HTML5. It's a WebRTC. Yeah. And that's one of the enhancements that's on the latest feature list is Chrome will work for that. Certainly, most browsers now have been enhanced to work natively with Teams, especially for Teams.
We're actually, we have several teams, okay, in our structure that are with guests, okay, or some of our partners, Microsoft, of course, okay. So we have a team and associated channels that in communicating directly with Microsoft as guests. Even during our integration between Red River and CWPS, we kind of had our teams connected via the guest services in there. And did we talk about private channels at all?
No, we did not. And that may be what this is leading towards.
Yeah, talk about that too.
Well, the security, when you let a team, a member of a team in that is a guest, they are now a member of that team. And obviously you have channels under that team. A private channel allows you to break that off so that it's not viewable by that guest, or in fact, anybody else that's not a member of that private chat session that you've added. It's one of the newer enhancements.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's going to be that's an important one, especially when communicating with outside parties. Yep. Okay.
All right. Well, there's tons of questions asked. We'll get to them as soon as possible. And then also the big question was asked multiple times: is this this event being recorded and will it be sent out? Yes, we will be sending a live event or the live recording to everyone who attended today, so you can catch up on any notes that you may have. Back to you, Frank.
Oh, I was answering a question. I apologize, Gary.
Oh, all right, go ahead. Go ahead, get that question then.
No, I'm all good. I would say that, well, the question I was answering was about OneNote and whether or not was there a way to choose a notebook you want to add. And I think through your administrator should allow you to create a notebook for, any time you need one, really. So you have the flexibility of creating new notebooks or adding existing notebooks to any team or channel. Yeah. All right, so this is a wrap, right? We're all good?
Yep.
Thank you very much, everyone, for supporting this webinar. Again, feel free, reach out. Let's see if there's a benefit there available for you in your organizations. If you're looking to roll out teams, connect at redriver.com is one way to get us. And we'll be very responsive. We have our teams kind of internally geared up and ready to go, to address these types of things. Like I said, I had 5 great conversations with customers this week that are looking to do the same. So we feel you. We know this is a trying time, a challenging time for you personally as well as your business. So if we can help you in any way, we'd love to be able to be a part of it. So thanks again. The recording is going to be out there, posted for everyone to see. Reach out. Thanks, and stay safe and healthy.